This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Julia Geisman. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
What am I doing? I'm sitting here talking with you.
I actually said, how are you doing? My apologies.
Oh, how am I doing? I'm doing okay. I had a frustrating day, but I'm basically doing okay.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. What part of the world are you in right now?
Boston, Massachusetts.
All right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
You talked to Bobby Carlton, who founded Innovation Women and Mass Innovation Nights. She told me, and you actually reached out to a lot of women on Innovation Women. And she asked me if I had gotten an invitation from you. And I said, no. She said, well, you probably will, because he took about 600 names off of the web. And she also happens to be one of my business advisors, and a wonderful, wonderful human being. So that's how I.
Now let's dig into that then. Let's dig into who did you learn the ability to be trustworthy from?
Who? Me? Be trustworthy? Who did I learn that from?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was my early childhood experiences that could have made me very untrusting. And one of the things that people used to say to me when I was a kid is, you're so truthful. You always tell the truth. So, I'm straightforward with people. I'm like a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. I don't have a lot of hidden agendas. And I'm also very reliable. People know that I'm reliable.
Was there someone in your family like that?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I was at my uncle's funeral, and I think it was my uncle. Yeah, it was my uncle's funeral. And I was looking at I have an older brother, and I was looking at my cousins. And there is a theme that runs through, it happened to be my mother's side of the family, which is a very deep sense of integrity. And I think that also has to do with trustworthiness and reliability and follow through.
Why will you continue to repeat that skill? Definitely, there are the challenges that go with that, right? Oh my gosh, we could spend the rest of the night listing them out. But why will you continue to repeat being that individual that is trustworthy, that walks in integrity?
Why do I continue to do that? Because it's who I am. And to be less than that would not be honoring who I am.
Love that. Tell us a bit now about CareerAgilitytm. What's that?
CareerAgility is a company that I founded upon a passion for equality. And this ties back to a deep sense of social justice. As a woman in business, I have experienced the same conversation over the last 40 years, although I haven't been involved in the conversation for 40 years. But it's the ongoing conversation of why women are not advancing in the workplace. And I just got kind of pissy about it. And I said, I have to do something about it. And so I founded CareerAgility with the intention of providing data to companies that reflect the current state of their environment when it comes to attracting and advancing high-performing women. And now we're beginning to expand it to be more, and gender equality is one part of the diversity conversation. And because I'm a white woman, that's the thing I know the most.
That's intriguing, though. It's so one quick question. Is it that you, like, how would you do that? Are you interviewing individuals in the organization? How are you feeling out what the organization is representing? Or are you looking from outside and analyzing it based on something that you've set up, parameters you've set up?
Well, first I have to say that I have organizational development, management and development background, and learning and development background. So I have always worked with what I call the human infrastructure of an organization, not the technical, but the human side of it, which includes the organization, individuals, and teams, leadership, etc. So I understand that dynamic. And I actually did a lot of research into the qualities of a workplace that's important for attracting and retaining high-performing women, which so happens to be the same quality of workplace for anybody who is underrepresented, for people of color as well as women. So I created an online assessment that are based upon these attributes. And we asked the same set of questions, and it's completely anonymous. We have no idea who responded to the questions. And the purpose of this online assessment is to be able to determine organizational alignment behind inclusion initiatives, to determine where there is differences in perception based upon position within the organization. So in other words, the first question is the organization aligned behind the initiative that is led by the C-suite? If it's not, and then the second question is, where is there a lack of support? Which helps us determine where within the organization the organization needs to spend some time in making sure that group is engaged. And the other thing is differences in perception based upon gender, which is not unusual. It just, there's confirmation. But the one piece that is unusual with what we do is that we ask a question about personal beliefs regarding diversity and inclusion. And there are several things that come out of this. One is that men and women see the importance of inclusion, of gender equality or inclusion, extremely high. On a 10-point scale, they usually rate it somewhere in the 8s. And the differential between the way men and women see it is minuscule. So those are the personal beliefs. But when we get into looking at the environment itself, the way the collective beliefs play out, the culture, what we find is there's a significant drop-off between men and women. It's more so for women as to how this plays out, how the organization actually presents itself, and what types of opportunities, what types of advancement opportunities, development opportunities, overall respectful environment, commitment on the part of the organization to advance gender equality, to attract, etc. The drop-off from the personal beliefs to the reality of the overall environment is around 3.5 points for women, and more like 1.5 for men.
Wow.
And that's important information for several reasons. One is, if an individual's values are not aligned with the company's values, it will result in disengagement, and it will also result in higher attrition. So most organizations don't look at that.
You've done a ton of work, haven't you? Wow.
Yes.
You've done a ton of work, haven't you? Oh my gosh.
And we also have proven that there is, we have data, and lots of people will tell you, say the same thing. we have data that demonstrates the fact that there is definitely a glass ceiling. But the difference is, and you can see it dropping off, the slow decline from staff level to middle management to the senior leadership drops off, rather significantly. But the other thing, too, is that most organizations, when they get into the space of diversity and inclusion, now they're saying belonging, which is a sense of affiliation, is that they look at it kind of siloed, segmented. We look at it from a very systemic perspective. So in other words, like I was having a conversation with a CEO of a bank lately, and he was talking about how they don't have enough women in the pipeline to move into executive leadership roles. And I said to him, do you have a succession plan? And he said, no, I don't think we do. Well, right there is a reason that there aren't women in the pipeline. Because the system has not, been set up such a system to be able to identify high potential women in the organization that get groomed for moving forward.
I guess people like you a lot, right? And some don't, because you cut to the chase.
Right. And so when we look at this issue, and I have a presentation on this. Most diversity and inclusion initiatives look at headcount as a way of measuring efficacy. And I say, if you have a systems approach, it's beyond headcount. So you have to know what segments to look at. First you have to have a baseline, which is what our scorecard is about. There's data. Here's the data. And you need this data to be strategic in your planning process.
I think your headset, Julia, is just rubbing on your something.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm using my hands.
Okay. Yeah. You're speaking to me while you're using your hands. Okay. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't. It's hard to sit on them. Anyway, so the organization will, as I said, look at things siloed. And I say you have to have a baseline in order to have the data, in order to know how you can measure, what your points of measurement will be, and how every initiative feeds into one of these buckets. And then when we take a look at it, we say, okay, what are the societal norms, unconscious behavioral expectations that exist? You have to tackle that, along with the workplace systems, along with people's internal conversation, their dialogue, the stories that they have that constantly are constantly running in the background and influence their worldview. And without addressing all those areas simultaneously, I suggest and have found that it's difficult to have a sustained resolution to diversity and inclusion.
Julia, I'm so sorry my conversation is 12 minutes, my friend. But like what you're speaking about really is very close to my heart. It's the crux of what 12-minute convos is, which is creating that conversation that I believe can be the foundational block for so many other things, which is just cutting through to who you are personally, where it came from, and a bit more, right? And you just outlined it in a way that I think I can get grants for if I did it that way. But I'm like 10 years away from that. But the way you did it is... Yeah, I definitely see, and I've worked in an organization for probably like 15 years, so I've seen the elements that you speak about. But I think in the Caribbean there are a lot of natural occurring factors that align with adaptability when it comes to organizations, of what you spoke about naturally, but definitely the exclusion of women has been something that has translated as well into our organizational systems because of that hierarchy type mindset. But let's switch gears because we'll get lost here, right? Because I have someone else on, right, waiting.
Right.
Amazing audience, I'm coming back to this conversation at some time in the future, like when I start doing hour-long conversations. My first hour-long conversation is going to be with Julia Geisman, right? I'm telling you, I'm serious. I really love where you're going. But Julia, let's switch gears for a moment. Let me now invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Julia, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Oh, that's so interesting. I remember distinctly, and I might have been like 3. I have a number of different memories, but one was when I was waiting for the delivery of the chair for my bedroom.
How old were
It was
you?
called a slipper chair. I was like maybe 3 or 4. And I must have been around 3 because I remember what I was wearing.
Wow, what's a
And I
slipper
remember
chair?
the day. Oh, it's a chair that you put in your bedroom that, it's a smallish chair, but it's there, as part of your bedroom furniture.
Okay.
And my mother used to call it a slipper chair.
All right. So is it like what? Like something that could go under the dresser table? Like that size? Probably like
No,
4
it's a little
feet?
bit big.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, but it's a little bit more comfortable. And I remember it was striped.
Why do you think this memory is so clear?
Darned if I know. But I can also remember there was one time when we were driving into New York City. I was raised outside of New York City. My father and brother were in the front seat, and I was lying down in my mother's lap. And I must have been 2. And she had this emerald green coat that had a satin lining. And I used to, rather than suck my thumb, I used to suck my index finger, and I would use my thumb to scrape, to rub on fabric. And I used to love rubbing the satin lining for coat. And I remember exactly where we were driving. We were going to my aunts, my great aunties.
How do you see that
And
memory connecting to who you are today?
probably probably the sense of family, which actually ended up not having, because my family split up when I was very young. Also, I think there was warmth and trust, which was unusual in my family because my mother was she was mentally ill. And so that was a time when I felt safe. I hadn't thought about this.
It is
And
intriguing.
also we were going to my great auntie, who was like my grandmother. And she definitely was a source of warmth and comfort for me and safety.
Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind with that memory?
Sure.
Even both memories. I'm fascinated by your mindset or even your attention to small details and understanding the value of them. It's really amazing with the small slipper chair, as you call it, right? That your mind at that tender age would place so much value for it. And then with your aunts, just like being there and seeing the fine details of what the jacket or the coat was. It's pretty
That was my
intriguing.
mother.
Oh, that was
That
your
was my
mother. My apologies.
Yeah,
It's
that's
intriguing.
okay.
Yeah, sure. It's intriguing just to see that your mind and then to translate it into. I mean, we just had a conversation where the details of what you went into surrounding an organization, what makes it tick, it's pretty intriguing to me how both parallel.
Well, my mother was bipolar, and what I realized from that is I really had to read the environment. I had to a lot more closely because there were certain windows of opportunity that I knew I had to take, or I had to know where my mother was at in order to get my needs met or not.
All right.
And okay, so I think that contributes to it.
If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Shout by the Isley Brothers.
Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Julia?
Mm-hmm.
Julia, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to? Hit me yes or no.
No.
Are you married?
Yes. No.
Wait, let's go back. Have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
My specific skills, no, but I mentor people all the time, women particularly.
All right, so we'll jump over. Are you married? You said no. Do you believe in God?
Oh, that's a big question. I believe that there is.
You could say pass if it's uncomfortable for you.
No.
Okay.
It's like what's God? You know, I believe that there is something bigger than me.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
It depends upon the day, but typically no.
All right. What about 3 hours a week?
Oh yeah.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh, it's probably about 8.
If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Julia Geisman, what would you say that is?
I dance with people till I seduce their heart, and then I can play with them.
Wow, I love that. Wow, I got chills. Julia, this has been a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, I probably could go on. No, I don't know that I know of anything else.
All right, Julia, this was a great pleasure, my friend. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Well, thank you for interviewing me, and I hope it comes across cohesively.
I'm sure it will.
This segment has been brought to you by Amazel Enterprise.